In the year 79 after Christ, the sky above Pompeii was a canvas of brilliant Mediterranean blue. The sun, a benevolent eye, warmed the precisely paved streets, cast long shadows across the peristyle gardens of opulent villas, and glinted off the polished marble columns of temples. This was not merely a dot on the vast map of the Roman Empire. Pompeii was a vibrant heart, beating with the rhythm of daily life, a place of exquisite beauty and profound pleasure. Protected by rolling hills and caressed by the sea breeze, it was a city that seemed sculpted for eternity, its harmony impervious to the passage of time. From the bustling workshops to the grand residences, an air of abundance permeated the city. The aroma of freshly baked bread, a comforting yeasty cloud, drifted from the ovens, mingling with the sharp tang of spices from the east, the rich scent of olive oil, and the sacred, smoky perfume of incense burning in the temples. In the forum, merchants, their voices a boisterous chorus, hawked their wares, bolts of fine cloth, glistening catches of fish, exotic spices that spoke of distant lands. Children, their laughter echoing through the narrow streets, darted between the cool spray of public fountains, their bare feet slapping against the ancient stones. From balconies adorned with blooming flowers, women watched the ceaseless flow of life below. This was a city awake. The morning began with the rumble of carts laden with ripe fruit and amphorae brimming with wine. Prices were shouted, hands exchanged coins that chimed with satisfying clarity. The din of commerce was punctuated by the playful shouts of boys and the gentle admonishments of mothers. Even the patrician families, ensconced in their secluded domus, found solace and stimulation within their private gardens. There, amidst the cool shade of cypress trees, they unrolled papyrus scrolls, sipping sweet wine, their conversations drifting from local gossip to the distant, almost abstract politics of Rome. Pompeii was, by any measure, a modern marvel. Its public baths, the thermae, were triumphs of engineering, a testament to Roman ingenuity. An intricate network of aqueducts delivered hot water to the caldarium, where citizens, after a day of labor or intellectual pursuit, would gather. Here, amidst the steamy warmth, business deals were struck, philosophical debates were ignited, and the day's events were dissected with animated discussion. It was a society at its zenith, a civilization that believed itself secure, prosperous, and enduring. Yet, above this tapestry of human endeavor, this seemingly immutable existence, loomed a silent, sleeping giant, Mount Vesuvius. It stood sentinel, a familiar and comforting presence, its slopes verdant with thriving vineyards. Its dark, fertile soil yielded grapes of exceptional sweetness, producing a wine so prized it found its way to the tables of Rome itself. The mountain, to those who lived in its shadow, was not a harbinger of destruction, but a benevolent provider, a steadfast part of their world. It seemed to slumber, a peaceful giant, its true, terrifying power utterly unknown, unimagined. They saw not a volcano, but a mountain, a generous neighbor. And in that profound ignorance, their vibrant city continued to live, oblivious to the cataclysm brewing within the earth, a fate that would soon entomb their world in a timeless, fiery embrace. The mountain, in its deceptive tranquility, held the power to erase a civilization in the blink of an eye, a stark reminder of nature's ultimate, indifferent authority. For centuries, its shadow offered solace, a cool respite from the relentless summer sun across the fertile fields. It was a constant, a fixed point on the Pompeian horizon, a silent sentinel whose heart remained a mystery, whose stillness inspired no fear. Yet the earth beneath their feet had begun to speak. In the months leading up to that fateful day, subtle tremors rippled through the ground. Plaster cracked on the walls of homes. Wells, once reliable sources of life, began to recede, their waters dwindling. Some observed the unusual flight of animals, a desperate exodus from an unseen threat. But life in Pompeii, accustomed to the Earth's occasional murmurs, continued its predictable rhythm. No one truly understood. Perhaps no one truly wanted to. The ground vibrated, a disquieting tremor as if an unseen giant walked beneath the bustling streets. Horses grew agitated, their hooves stamping nervously. Dogs barked with an unnerving persistence, their cries echoing through the place, their water growing murky, tinged with an unsettling sediment. Whispers began to circulate, carried by the elders, tales of a distant past when the mountain had stirred. But these were dismissed as the ramblings of old age, the fanciful prophecies of those lost in memory. Pompeii was a city of strength, of permanence, of civilization. And civilization, they believed, was impervious to mere tremors, to superficial fissures in stone. The earth, after all, was alive, and had always been so. Life proceeded, a determined march forward, as if oblivious to the gathering storm. Then the day arrived. The day the sky itself seemed to extinguish. The sun blazed, a harsh, unforgiving eye in a cloudless azure expanse. The early hours unfolded with an almost serene normalcy. In countless homes, midday meals were being prepared, dishes washed, conversations drifted towards the evening's attire. Priests officiated solemn rites within the temples, their chants echoing through sacred halls. Slaves diligently polished the marble columns, their labor a testament to the city's prosperity. Childel was as it should be, tranquil, predictable, profoundly human. It was late morning, the 24th of August. The ground shuddered, a deep, ill-consuming roar that tore through the air. Vesuvius had erupted. It was more than noise, it was a rending of the world, a primal scream from the subterranean depths. Birds, startled into a chaotic frenzy, surged upwards as if propelled by an invisible hand. Goats in the distant pastures collapsed, their legs buckling. People clapped hands to their ears, a futile gesture against the overwhelming cacophony. The very walls of their homes vibrated violently. Amphorae toppled from shelves, shattering on the mosaic floors. Doors, moments before secured, were flung open by the concussive force. And then, the sky began its terrifying transformation. A column, impossibly black, speared upwards into the heavens. It was not merely smoke, it was a roiling mass of ash, fumes, and incandescent debris. From the summit of Vesuvius, a monstrous entity of pure shadow unfurled. It was as if the mountain's peak had cracked open an unseen maw and begun to spew forth the very essence of hell. The column ascended, a stark black monolith, as thick as an ancient tree, yet magnitudes grander. It climbed and climbed, its ascent relentless. The ancients would later call it a pillar of fire, but it was no flame. It was living ash, dense, suffocating, with incandescent bled through shades of gray, then brown, and finally plunged into an impenetrable, suffocating blackness. The sun, an hour before an unobstructed sovereign, was now but a pale, flick heavens. Pumice began to fall, light yet merciless. Millions of fragments, white, lapilli, the true volcanic K-heads, injured eyes, lacerated skin. Each minute brought thousands more. With every passing hour, the ground accumulated a thicker layer. The roofs of the houses began to groan. Some, unable to bear the immense weight, collapsed. Ancient beams, one by one, surrendered. Patrician villas, the warehouses, the public baths, nothing was spared. Everything was covered. If it did not collapse, it was buried. The streets filled with bodies. Those who could ran. But where could they flee? Towards the unknown. Some, barefoot, attempted to escape towards the open countryside, but the accumulating ash rendered the ground incandescent. Others sought refuge in cellars, in subterranean kitchens, barricading doors with planks of wood, praying to the gods to quell the earth's fury. But the earth did not listen. Screams echoed everywhere. The cries of mothers searching for their children. The bewildered shouts of men who could not comprehend the unfolding horror. Prayers, terror, sheer panic. No one knew if this was the end of the world or a waking nightmare. Some retreated within their homes, bolting doors, whispering desperate pleas. Others ran towards the fields, towards the harbor, seeking salvation. But there was no safe haven. Pompeii had become a death trap. The streets became impassable. Carts overturned on the treacherous, slippery stones. Horses, maddened with fear, reared and struck at the air. The harbor, which for centuries had welcomed merchant vessels from across the known world, was now unreachable. The waves receded, the sea churned, as if it too were terrified. The few who managed to set sail found themselves struggling to navigate through this sudden, unnatural night. Ash fell even upon the sea. The air reeked of sulfur. Pompeii, the vibrant, prosperous Pompeii, had transformed into a crucible of suffering and disorientation. Its straight roads, its elegant homes, its sunlit piazzas, now mere conduits of agony. And still it was not over. The hours crawled by warmth offered no solace. What was needed was oxygen, and the air was growing thin. The immense cloud above continued to swell, and with its growth, so too did the fear. The very foundations of their world were being erased, not by an invading army, but by the raw, indifferent power of the earth itself. The very passage of time seemed to warp, as if nature itself had lost its rhythm. The rain of stones did not cease. The clouds of ash thickened, darkening to an ominous black. Some desperately covered their faces with damp cloth. Others dug shallow hollows in the earth, seeking not refuge, but perhaps a breath of air. Lanterns flickered and died, choked by the pervasive dust. The city plunged into darkness, shrouded by a suffocating cloud that stole the very air. Breaths grew shallow, eyes burned, ash infiltrated everything, lungs, wells, the smallest cracks beneath doors. Many fell to their knees, convinced divine wrath had descended. They invoked Jupiter, Apollo, Pluto, pleading for mercy. Even the statues seemed to have abandoned their plinths, their stone forms offering no solace. Only silence, only the groaning of collapsing structures. In the poorer districts, homes already half-ruined fold. Those trapped within perished slowly, suffocated by the ash. Those outside were struck by falling stones or drowned in the superheated air. And still, Vesuvius roared. Then came the true end. Everything that had transpired until that moment, the rain of pumice, the ash, the darkness, the terror, was merely the prelude. The prologue to a far more savage tragedy. Deep within the mountain's belly, something different, something more potent was being forged. Something that offered no escape, no time for reaction. This was no longer merely an eruption. It was nature's detonation. A primordial fury, accumulating for hours, suddenly finding its violent release. It was late afternoon. From the crater of Vesuvius, the mountain unleashed its most terrible weapon, the pyroclastic flow. An incandescent surge of gas, ash, and debris hurled down the volcano's slopes at unimaginable speed. 300 kilometers per hour, 700 degrees Celsius. It was a wave, yes, but not of water, a wave of de-apprehend. 30 seconds. There was no escape. No direction offered safety. There was no running, no screaming, not even the possibility of breathing. The air itself became fire. Those caught in the open felt nothing. Their bodies stiffened instantly. The heat was so extreme it seized the muscles, shattered the bones. Flesh simply evaporated. Yet the form, within homes, the devastation was equally merciless. The cloud invaded through windows, seeped through cracks in doors, flowed. Animals went mad, circling frantically before collapsing. Those hidden implored the gods, their prayers lost in the inferno. The silence was broken only by the soft embrace of those left beside each other, a final, desperate comfort. There was nothing more to be done. Those who remained in the city were struck instantly. The searing heat melted the very birds from the sky. Yet it did not erase the stances, the gestures, the expressions etched onto faces. Pompeii was frozen in the heat had arrived, but it had not extinguished life. It had crystallized it. A mother bent protectively over her child. A man kneeling in prayer. Two bodies locked in an embrace. A dog chained, its final struggle silenced. And then the desperate scramble to dig, to excavate the earth before it was too late. The stories of each individual ceased in that instant, in a fraction of a second. The gesture of love, the grip of panic, the plea of faith, the raw agony of pain. All of it was sealed beneath an invisible shroud, destined to endure for 2,000 years. And the cloud did not strike only Pompeii. It consumed Herculaneum, Oplantis, Stabii. All the cities surrounding Vesuvius were engulfed. But in Pompeii, something different occurred. The city, by a strange twist of fate, remained perfectly sealed. Everything was swallowed. Nothing remained on the surface. The city's profile vanished. Columns toppled. Temples collapsed. Streets were filled. Statues were buried. Fountains fell silent. Everything that had possessed sound, scent, and color disappeared. In less than 24 hours, Pompeii ceased to exist. It lay buried beneath 6 meters of ash and stone. No one searched for it. No one returned. Its name faded from memory. The few survivors fled, never looking back. They ran far, many towards Naples, others towards Capua. They recounted fragmented tales, speaking of a day the sun had died, of a mountain that had devoured a city, but few believed them, and no one dared to return. The world forgot. Time erased its name, just as the ash had erased its streets. Pompeii became a phantom, a fable whispered to children, a flickering memory impossible to verify. Yet beneath the ash, something remained. Above it, life continued. Fields turned green once more. Farmers cultivated vineyards. The roots of trees plunged deep, intertwining with buried mosaics, frescoes, and the silent forms of the dead, completely unknown. Where Pompeii once stood, there were now only fields. Fertile, generous fields, yielding abundant harvests. The rains fell with their usual rhythm. The sun warmed the earth. The new inhabitants of these lands had no inkling of what lay beneath their feet. The farmers planted vines, olive trees, fruit-bearing trees. They walked upon a world entombed, above painted atria, above tables still laden. No one imagined that every clod of earth concealed an entire world, a world that had died in a single day, yet lived on in the memory of the soil. Centuries passed. The name of Pompeii faded into the mists of time. Rome, the mighty empire, crumbled. Other powers rose, and then they too fell. All the while Pompeii slept, silent, still, preserved beneath meters of ash, a perfect, undisturbed tomb. During the Middle Ages, the very memory of Pompeii had all but vanished. Whispers among some monks spoke of a city divinely punished, but its location was lost. A phantom whispered about but never found. Some speculated it lay in distant Palestine, others dismissed it as mere legend. And beneath the volcanic shroud, everything remained. The rooms, the kitchens, the stables, the wells, even the scrawled graffiti on the walls. Untouched, unseen. Pompeii was not merely destroyed, it was hidden, rendered invisible by the earth itself. Then, one day, almost by chance, a spade broke the silence. It was the 18th century. Europe was in flux, a continent awakening to the stirrings of science. A burgeoning curiosity for the ancient world pulsed through society. Wealthy patrons, artists, and scholars journeyed to Italy, eager to witness the splendors of antiquity firsthand. It was during routine hydraulic works near the Sarno River that something extraordinary occurred. Laborers digging a canal unearthed unusual remnants, walls adorned with frescoes, floors laid with intricate mosaics, Roman coins. They could not comprehend the significance of their find, but it was undeniably more than mere stone. Authorities were alerted. Scholars began to arrive. Excavations commenced, slowly, tentatively, as if the excavators themselves were unsure of what lay beneath. But the truth soon became undeniable. They were unearthing a city, a complete city, frozen in time on its final day. With each layer of ash removed, the astonishment grew. The first walls to emerge revealed frescoes of astonishing vibrancy, colors as vivid as if painted yesterday. Mosaics lay perfect, their intricate patterns undisturbed. Objects lay scattered as if abandoned moments before. Kitchen utensils, braziers, lamps, amphorae. Every artifact spoke of a life abruptly halted, yet preserved with an almost delicate grace. It was as though time itself had conspired to protect each minute detail. Those who first laid eyes upon Pompeii were rendered lavish banquet. Kitchens seemed ready for a meal to be prepared. Beds looked as if their occupants had merely risen for the day. It was an archaeological miracle, a testament to a vanished past. Scholars, princes, artists, they flocked from across Europe, drawn by the allure of this dead city that spoke so eloquently. Then they found them, the bodies. Initially, they appeared only as hollow voids within the hardened ash. But when one determined archaeologist poured liquid plaster into these empty spaces, a revelation of profound impact occurred. The cavities yielded the forms of those who had perished, not as mere remains, nor as skeletal fragments, but as human figures, caught in the very act of their final moments, petrified in their death throes. The city, in its silent slumber, had not only preserved its structures, but had also captured the very essence of its inhabitants' last breath. A mother shielding her child, a man, his face buried in his hands. A young man, lying on his side as if in sleep. They remained still there. Fingers curled, lips parted, muscles tensed. Each body was a story. Each pose recounted a final decision. They were not merely victims, they were people. And Pompeii had preserved them with a terrible, poignant care. Every face told a tale, every body a fragment of soul, frozen, trapped in time. No other site on earth displayed death with such humanity, such truth. Catastrophes typically leave only ruin. Pompeii had left life crystallized. A scream that, even today, still resonates. Pompeii still speaks to us. Not with a voice, but with its ruins. With its human casts, its shattered streets. With frescoes suspended in a single, fleeting instant. Every time someone crosses the threshold of this ancient city, they become a witness, not merely a visitor. For Pompeii is an archive of interrupted gestures, of ordinary lives frozen in their most fragile, most authentic moment. One walks the narrow alleys in silence. Voices are hushed. But where everything remains, the bread on the table, the comb upon the bed, the footprints on the floor. And as one observes, the realization dawns. These men and women were not so different from us. They laughed, they argued, they dreamed. And then, as in a dream, it all ended. It tells us how alive life was, just before the end, and how everything can vanish in a matter of hours. Those who visit Pompeii ask themselves, what if tomorrow were my last day? Pompeii tears us from the present to show us what it means to live intensely before time runs out. For no one that day awoke believing it would be their last. And yet, for all, it was. Stories are of no use if no one listens.